Hi guys, and welcome to this tutorial for MechWarrior Online. Now, MechWarrior Online might seem like your standard big robot game where you pick a robot, go into space, do battle, and may the best person win. Couldn't be further from the truth. MechWarrior Online is based on the Battletech Universe, which has been around now for about 30 years. I can talk about this for probably hours, but what I'll do is I'll take you through the tutorial first, and then at the end of it I'll give you a brief on the Battletech Universe so that you understand where things such as Yen Lo Wang, who's currently staring you in the face, come from. Because it is a huge universe, and it adds so much dimension and depth to the game when you actually put yourself in there. But enough of that for the moment. So when you first log into the game, this will be something very similar to what you see. On the top you've got Home, Maclab, Pilot Labs. They're pretty self-explanatory. The launch button, okie dokie. In the middle you've got some content, so you can purchase Yen Lo Wang here if you want to for 3,750 MC. If you bought a Founders Pack, which is one where they've monetized the game, then you will already have some MechWarrior credits. And as you can see at the bottom, I purchased the Legendary Pack, the one with 4 mechs, and so I got 20,000 MechWarrior credits along with that. So they've already got my money. Now on the right, you've got this news feed. Now the interesting thing about this is, as you can see, pretty much every day there is some kind of news that comes out. Something specific to the Battletech Universe, and they've been bringing that out for literally months and months and months and months. Then you've got the social button here with some information there, and then some stats at the bottom. So what I want to do now is take you through some of these mechs, help you to understand how to build them, what the different parts are, how the weaponry works, so that when you do stride onto the battlefield you're not a completely raw noob. Well, the first thing I have to explain is that if you have not purchased a Founders Pack, then what you will have here are the 4 trial mechs. Now these are a light, medium, heavy and assault. The tonnages within MechWarrior Online go from 20 tons to 100 tons. So the Atlas, for example, is a 100 ton mech. The heavier the mech in general, the slower it is, but the more armor and the more weaponry it carries. So as you can probably understand, if you've got something like a Commando, which is a small mech, something small and fast is generally going to be used for scouting or harassment. Something large and slow is going to be used for part of the main battle line. And then you can have speciality mechs. So for example, the Catapult is a heavy mech, 65 tons if I remember correctly. This particular version, you can see those 2 big boxes on its shoulders. They are LRM long-range missile packs. They give that mech a very good long-range capability, so that will tend to stay behind the main line, throwing out its missiles at any kind of enemy it can reach from a distance. However, what you often find is little light scout harasser mechs try and get around the main battle line to get at the mechs at the back. Now this is what I mean by it's not just a simple run and gun game. There's quite a lot of depth and tactics and strategy to it. As I say, if you didn't buy a Founders Pack, you will have 4 trial mechs. The trial mechs do change on a regular basis. The unfortunate thing with the trial mechs is, well, there's 2 unfortunate things. The first is that you can't change them. So as you can see here, I'm in the Maclab. I can click on the Cicada, but I can't change anything. The second thing is that when you're piloting one of these mechs, you don't get any mech XP. So you can't use that towards, for example, the Pilot Lab. However, the way that it works is you spend a few games with the different mechs, you find out which one you like. For example, are you somebody who prefers to be a scout? Or do you prefer to be right in the thick of the action in something big and heavy? Once you've decided that, as you've been building up your credits in game, you can then start to purchase different mechs. So that means the lighter mechs are far cheaper than the big heavy mechs, but you can still go out and you can save up and purchase your mechs. And the 4 trial mechs give you an opportunity to go out and test different things. So once you've purchased your mech, what you're going to want to do is to start working on it in the Maclab. So what I'll do, these are, the trial mechs. I'll switch across to my own mechs. These are the ones that I got as part of the Founders Pack, and each one of these I can change. So if I select, for example, my favourite mech, which is a Hunchback, and click on Loadouts, you'll see on the bottom left I can click on one of the hard points and it will take me through the different parts of the mech. So let's take the right arm for example. These are things that you can't change. I've got one medium laser in there and the rest of the slots are empty. But the hard point restrictions I've got, I'm only allowed one energy weapon in here. And I've already got that, so I can't put any other weaponry in there. If I had the space, I could put ammo in there. Which brings me nicely round to this panel here. Now, a Hunchback is 50 tons. A max weight of 50 tons. I've already filled it up with armor, with heat sinks, with weaponry, so I'm already at 50 tons. So if I wanted to add something else, I either have to reduce the amount of armor, reduce the amount of ammo, reduce the amount of heat sinks, or reduce the amount of weapons. So let's say for example that I took off that medium laser. It's now 49 tons in weight. I've got 1 ton free, so I could pick medium laser, small laser, flamer, small pulse laser, target acquisition gear, which allows you to help LRMs when they're fired. I can add some ammo. I can add a heat sink, or I could add some more armor if I haven't. I've already maxed it out there. If I hadn't, I could add some more armor. Now the way that the weapons work is that there are two basic types of weapon. On the one hand, you've got energy, which are, let me just cancel that. You've got energy, which are, they don't require ammo, but they generate a lot of heat. On the other hand, you've got ammo-based weapons, which do require ammo, but generate very little heat. So if you've got a mech which has a lot of energy weapons, it generates an awful lot of heat. Too much heat shuts down your mech. So the way of getting rid of heat is to use heat sinks. The more heat sinks that you've got on your mech, the more heat you get rid of, the more often you can fire energy weapons. And that's why quite often you'll find a mix of ammo and energy weapons on a mech, because the energy weapons can be fired indefinitely without running out of ammo. But if you're totally energy based, you need a lot of heat sinks. And quite often you can't get enough heat sinks on a mech to be able to fire all your weapons continuously, or energy weapons continuously, and so you end up with this kind of compromise. And that's why, take the Hunchback here for example. It's got an AC-20 or autocannon 20. That's the big thing here. That deals a hell of a lot of damage up close and personal. It's got two medium lasers which are energy based. The AC-20 is ammo based, and an anti-missile system which is also ammo based. So if I go back into the loadout, click on here, you can see that's the AC-20. You can see how many slots that takes up. In the chest, I've got one heatsink. Left torso, AMS is anti-missile system. So the hard point restriction here is I can only have one AMS. I'm not allowed to have an ammo-based or any other ammo-based weaponry or energy weaponry in here. And then the left arm where I can have up to one energy weapon. One of the big problems with the earlier games of this type was bolting, where you may have a mech which had just one type of weaponry. Now that can be very efficient, but it's not really within the spirit, if you will, of the Battletech universe, and that's one of the reasons why the designers have gone down the route of forcing you to only have, for example, you can only have ballistic or ammo-based weapons within the right torso. So as you can see, I'll cancel the change I made earlier, so I've now got 50 tons. Firepower, heat efficiency are relative terms. So the higher the firepower, the more damage you can do, your mech can do. Heat efficiency again is relative, so the higher this number, the more efficient it is at dissipating heat, so the more you can fire your weapons, especially ammo-based weapons. Now that number is 1.24, and that's on my custom Hunchback. If I now cancel that, and I go to trial mechs, let's take the Catapult as an example. The heat efficiency on the trial Catapult is 0.98. On my Catapult it's 1.22, so I've added extra heat sinks to get rid of the heat from energy-based weapons, and the reason why I've done that is so that I can fire them more often without overheating and shutting down. So on this mech, for example, I still have the two large LRMs, so the LRM-15 there, so it shoots off 15 missiles at a time. LRM-15 here, so that's 30 missiles at a time. I've got 2 tons of LRM ammo. I've also got anti-missile system, and I have 2 medium pulse lasers in the chest, which gives me a very good long-range mech. And if I have a scout or harasser come up close, or as quite often happens in games, enemy mechs target these LRM launchers and destroy them, I still have 2 very good backup weapons in my medium pulse lasers, and because I've got quite a lot of heat sinks on there, I'm able to fire them for quite a long time. So that shows you the advantage of having heat sinks. Ammo is self-explanatory. The more ammo, the more space it takes, the more weight it takes, but the longer you can fire the ammo-based weapon for it. Now, if you wanted to make changes to a mech that you had, let's say for example, this is a missile. This allows you with 1 missile system in here. So if I get rid of that, that means I can add an SRM-4, which is a short-range missile. LRM is long-range missile. LRMs do 1 point of damage per missile, so that would do 5 points of damage. SRMs do 2 points, but they're very short-ranged. I can add a NORC, which is basically a homing beacon, and a Streak SRM is a homing version of the SRM. The standard SRM short-range missile is dumbfire. A Streak SRM is one that locks on. The LRMs also lock on as well. You simply couldn't hit at 700 meters with an LRM that doesn't lock on. So I could, for example, put an SRM-6 in there. Now I've got my 1 missile in there. If I wanted to, what I could do is come into, let's see, on this side, remove that LRM, put in an SRM-6. I'll need to buy it. Okay, so that's 2 SRM-6, which are very short ranged. And if I really wanted to, I could say, right, well, I've got, as you can see, I've got 8 extra tons. What I'll do is add additional medium pulse lasers, so I'll put 1 there, and I'll put 1 here. And if you watch my heat efficiency, that should go down. Medium pulse laser, there we go. And there you go. So I've now got 4 medium pulse lasers, 2 short-range missile pikes, and all of a sudden I've gone from being a long-range mech to a short to medium-ranged mech. And this is kind of the change that you can make. It's still a very missile-orientated mech, but it's now short-range. You can see I still only use 61 tons of the 65. So what I can do at this point is then say, right, well, I'll add heat sinks, and heat sinks. So my heat efficiency has gone back up, so I can fire my energy-based weapons better. For the eagle-eyed amongst you, you probably realise I've not changed the ammo. I still have LRM ammo, so I'll take that out, add SRM ammo, and do the same on this side. Remove the LRM and put SRM. As you can see, I've now got a fairly effective short to medium range fighter, which will do a lot of damage up close because of those short range missiles. Some of the mechs also come with jump jets. In fact, the standard version of the Catapult does, although I usually take them off. Personally, I don't tend to use them, but they can be useful for getting up high. It's also quite often you might be able to jump up, vertically up over the brow of a ridge, fire your weaponry off, and then as you drop back down, that means the enemy cannot hit you with direct fire. That's something that used to happen quite a lot on the early games. It's quite a useful little tactic. So that gives you an idea of what you can do with the MechLab. In terms of armor, which is this button, so let's say for example that I remove the SRM ammo just for now. If I go to, I'm sorry, this armor is this button, my mistake. So you can see the max armor I can have here is 60. I've only got 38. So if I start to increase that, you can see my ammo will start going up. If I start to increase that, in fact that actually looks like a bug. There we go, max 40, that's more like it. And you can start to say, so you can increase your armor, which means that your mech will last longer. Now I'll cancel all these changes. Okay, so I still have my long range mech left. So that's the basics of loading it out, and very often within MechWarrior Online, as in the Battletech Universe, it's a question of balance. If you want a long range mech, you might say, well, I can skimp on the armor because I'm not expecting to take that much damage, certainly at the beginning, but maybe I should take extra ammo. You can also use long-range direct-fire weaponry such as a Gauss Rifle or an ERPPC. Now, a Gauss Rifle is ammo-based or ballistic. ERPPC, extended range particle projection cannon, is energy-based, so you need heat sink to dissipate the heat. It's a question of balance, and it's something that you'll play around with, and over time you'll get to find your personal playstyle. So that covers the loadouts. Modules. Now this is actually replicated in the pilot lab as well, so I'll leave that and I'll show you this in the pilot lab. Upgrades. This is something that's been recently introduced. Standard armor is, well, standard, says it in the name really. Pretty much all mechs come with that. Ferrofibrous armor though is bulkier but lighter, so you get more protection for the same weight, but it uses up some of those slots on your mech. So if you go back to the loadout, you'll see here, let me take an example here, I've got empty slots. Now if I drop that LRM-15 and say put a, let's say put a Streak 2 in there, I've only used one slot. I've still got all of those slots left. Now at the moment they're useless, but what I could do is upgrade to ferrofibrous armor, and in fact I already have done that, and that would use some of those empty slots. In fact, if I go to the center torso, let's check. No, I've not upgraded on this one, so what I'll do is I'll cancel it, go to upgrades, and you can see I'm equipped with standard armor. It'll cost me just over 500,000 credits to upgrade to ferrofibrous, so I'll actually do that right now as I'm doing this. Press save. Yep, and if I go back to loadout, once it's finished doing what it's doing, you should see armor slot, dynamic armor slot. So it's taken up quite a number of those spare empty slots. Now on the smaller mechs, it's actually, you don't have that many empty slots, so if you're using very large weaponry you don't have that many slots. And you can see I've saved a bit of weight as well, so what I'll do afterwards is come back and say, well, what do I want to spend that on? My personal preference would be to say, let's see what we've got. What have we got? Space, energy. I can put one energy weapon there, but medium pulse lasers. Where's medium pulse lasers? Right, not going to get that in there. So I could put tag in there, for example. If I put tag in there, target acquisition gear, that then allows me to use that when I'm playing to more accurately, if I don't have a lock on an enemy mech, for example, I can fire the weapons, the tag, I can point that at the enemy mech, and they will go wherever the tag is pointing to. But what I'll do is I'll take that off. I will see what I'm doing in case of armor, and what I'll do is I'll increase your armor, because 9 times out of 10 these things get shot off. So by increasing the armor there, it makes it far more difficult for the bad guys to shoot them off. And I'll come back later on and I'll fiddle around with that a bit. So that's how you upgrade. In terms of structure, you've got standard structure, which is what I've got, and endo steel, which is very similar to ferrofibrous. It's lighter, it's bulkier, it takes up more space, but gives you better protection. Heat sinks. You've got standard and double. Double heat sinks get rid of twice the amount of heat, but take up 3 times the amount of space. And the new one, which is the Artemis 4 FCS, or Fire Control System, this adds homing capabilities to SRMs and additional tracking to LRMs. So this basically means that it makes it far more effective for a missile mech. So that's something that I might very well come back in a few days and purchase and test that out. Now coming across to camo spec, this isn't implemented as of yet, but I'm pretty much assuming that in the future what they'll do is turn around and say, hey, you can buy this camo spec for $5 US. Excuse me. So that's going through the Maclab. I'll cancel that. The pilot lab is at the moment relatively simple. On the right hand side here, you've got your 4 mech sizes and weights. So I tend to use my Hunchback quite a lot, which is this one. As you can see, I've already purchased 4 of the 8 upgrades as a pilot. So kinetic burst, for example, increases the acceleration of your mech by 22.5%. Now, when these first came out, they were only down at about 2 or 2.5%, so they were basically useless. But they've adjusted them and made them much more interesting, so it's worthwhile buying these. So if I wanted to increase, for example, the twist of the upper torso, I can spend 2,500 XP on that to be able to get that. Once I've got these, all of these unlocked for 3 variants of the Hunchback, then I can get access to these. But you've got to own 3 variants of the or have owned 3 variants of the Hunchback to do that. And as you're only able to own your founder mech or mechs plus 4 more without actually buying more Maclab slots, it might take you a while to get through that. As you can see, I have a Catapult. I've not purchased any of them yet, so I may want to purchase Cool Run. Increases the amount of heat dissipation by 7.5%, so it makes it run a little cooler. Use Mech XP, yes please. So I now have that on my mech. Now, pallet trees are the same thing that I mentioned that's also in Maclab. So target info, for example, that's 10,000 general XP. As you can see, I'm only at 1,000 so far, so quite a way to go on that. In game, you can zoom in up to 3 times. So is it targeting or is it vision? That's it, advanced zoom. So this allows you to go up to 4 times, but also gives you a picture-in-picture as well of the mech that you're targeting, which is very useful. Support. That increases the rate of capture by 15%. That could be very useful, but again, 15,000 GXP is very expensive. And target info, which is what I was showing you earlier. When you're targeting an enemy in-game, it takes a certain amount of time for it to go from a simple target to knowing what the target is, to knowing the damage that's been already applied to that target. So this decreases the amount of time it takes to go through that process. So that's a look around in some depth at the main UI here. I'll just mention the social. You can have friends. You can create groups and drop in groups. Any invites that you may have, any people you may have blocked are in there. It's a fairly simple system, but it's adequate at the moment. As I say, I think the main thing is going to be the community warfare system when that comes out. And effectively, that's going to tie in what you play in-game with the Battletech universe. So it may be that there are 3 different battles on a particular planet to take over a certain city, which then means your faction can move forward on that planet. Eventually it takes a planet and then it moves forward into the next star system. So you kind of get the idea. Now, what I want to talk about just for a couple of minutes is the Battletech universe itself. So if what you wanted to do was to go through the UI and the Maclab and all that kind of stuff, and that's purely all that you're interested in, you can pause or stop this video now, because that's pretty much all I'm going to go through on that. Now, what I want to talk about is the Battletech universe. The Battletech universe has been going since the 80s. It started with a tabletop game. Has many books, novels written about it. There's TROs, technical readouts, for different types of mechs, and there are literally hundreds of different types of mechs and variations. Most are bipedal, some are quadrupeds, such as the Goliath, for example, which is an assault mech. In the 90s, we started to see games coming out. So you had the original MechWarrior, then MechWarrior 2, which is when I first started playing it online, in 97 actually, and then you had MechWarrior 3, you had MechWarrior 4, and it stopped at MechWarrior 4, which is in the early noughties. So there's been about a 10-year hiatus between when MechWarrior 4 came out and the X-Packs for that came out to when MechWarrior Online is coming out. And the Battletech universe has not had a game during that period. Now, in terms of the universe itself, where we are within the timeline is the year 3049. I'll come to why that's important in a minute. When mankind went out to the stars in the Battletech universe, it went out into the stars in a roughly circular shape around Earth. So that is called the inner sphere, that particular group of stars, and there's several thousand stars and planets in that. It's split into roughly 5 factions, which is Davion, Steiner, the FR, Free Rasselhaig Republic, Capella, or the Capellans, and the final one, which is going out of my mind at the moment. So Steiner, Davion, FRR, Capella, and the Mareks, which is the Marek guys. Let's just call them the Marek guys for now. So basically, you've got 5 different factions. In fact, I might have got some of those wrong. So if I got them wrong, I apologise for that. Roughly 250 years prior to where we are today, there was an institution called the Star League, and this united all of those 5 factions together under the banner of one particular person who ran the Star League. Now, this did very well for many years, but was destroyed by one person who created a massive civil war. The general of the Star League army, a guy called Alexander Kerensky, defeated the usurper, took back Terra, or Earth, and then promptly left. And he took about 75% of the Star League army with him, and he left the Inner Sphere in a very large convoy of starships and dropships. So he left about 250 years ago. Nobody knew where he had gone. Nobody knows at this point, 3049, what's happened to him and the people he went with. What we do know from further forward in the timeline is that in 3050, his descendants, who are called the clans, come back and attack the Inner Sphere. They have spent this last 2.5 centuries building themselves up to be able to attack the Inner Sphere, drive through it, get to Terra, because Terra is their holy grail, their Mecca, their Jerusalem. And it's something that the highest possible honor a clan could have is to walk on Terra. So in 3050 that invasion starts, and the way that the creators of MechWarrior Online have positioned the game is so that we can go through a lot of the beta and a lot of the testing as just pure Inner Sphere, and then once everything's sorted out, and especially community warfare is in place, then they will look at the clan invasion, and that is something which is really juicy because it creates such a massive backdrop for people who are fond of this universe to be able to get into it, get into games. I can't understate the amount of passion and the amount of backstory there is to this universe. It's like very few other universes I know of, except for the real one, obviously. And if you get into it, and if you start reading the books and you start seeing the history, it is something you can really throw yourself into. And as I say, Yen Lo Wang, which is the Centurion, which is the first of the hero mechs, and this is one of the ways that Piranha are hoping to monetize this game. He in 3049, he is piloted by a gentleman called Kai Allard Liao. Now, Yen Lo Wang was also piloted by his father, Justin Allard, and there's a whole history from the 4th Succession War, which started in 3025, which Justin Allard had a very key role in, all the way through to the clan invasion, which is where Kai Allard Liao himself was also heavily involved in as a warrior, as a mech warrior, and as somebody who was on the Davian side. So, as I say, they will bring out other hero mechs. Don't know which one. It's going to be interesting to see which ones do come out. And of course, people will buy them. Now, I've not purchased Yen Lo Wang, but I do have, because I've purchased a Founders Pack, 20,000 MechWarrior credits. So I'm seriously considering buying him, but I'm just holding off at the moment just to see what other stuff they come out with. So, if to look on, to get a bit more of the history of Battletech, if you're interested in that kind of thing, have a look at a site called Sarna, sarna.net. That is a great site with a lot of info. It's also got a lot of the mechs in there as well, and also a lot of the other parts, because this universe isn't just all about mechs. There are battle armor, which is basically small 1-ton mini mechs. They've got what many people think were a bad mistake, which are proto mechs, which are about 5 tons. You've got a large universe with the different planets and their names and how far they're from different planets and the resources and the capacity they have on them. There is Aero Fighters, regular fighters. There are drop ships, jump ships. There are capital class spaceships as well. So basically a jump ship is normally unarmed. Drop ships tend to be armed because they're the ones that drop the mechs into the middle of a firefight. You've also got tanks, you've got VTOLs, you've got helicopters, you've got the whole thing. And if Piranha can get to the point where you're fighting within a massive battle and you're fighting for this planet, and a bit like PlanetSide 2 but on a much bigger scale, it's going to be absolutely fantastically incredible. So I'm going to stop there. I dare say most people have, the tutorial section's finished, so most people have actually turned off already, and my voice is going hoarse. But I do hope that you enjoyed that tutorial, and I very much hope that you enjoyed a little bit of backstory about Battletech. It is a fascinating universe, and I first got into it in about 1988. So you can imagine it's something that I've got many books on, and something which I've thoroughly enjoyed for the last two and a half decades. So if you do get a chance, read up on it. I do hope you enjoy the game. This is part 1 of this tutorial. The part 2 will be a tutorial from in-game, showing you how to play, how to set things up, and how to do some of the tactics which may hopefully help you to win games, help you to be a better team player, and also perhaps enjoy the game a little more. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much if you've got this far for listening, and take care.